Okay, welcome to Playfly Playmakers. Folks, we've got a couple special guests here today, Rashid Ghazi and Julie Simmons from our recent acquisition earlier this year from Paragon Sports Marketing. Happy to have you both here today. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Excited to be here. Thanks, Craig.
Good. I've got a lot to cover, and we're going to try to get through it all today. But I think first and foremost, off the top, we'll side question. The name of the podcast is Playmakers. In your definition, maybe in your sports career, what a playmaker was. Were you a playmaker? And in your business career, what maybe a playmaker means to either or both of you. So care to weigh in.
Rash, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I can take that first. I think in my sports career was a little hit or miss. So maybe in high school football, I was a playmaker because I was captain of my team, had some interceptions, kind of led the squad. In my high school basketball career, I was a bench maker. I scored 6 points my entire senior year. So depending on the field that we were on, the results were very, very different.
We might need to spin up another podcast called Benchmaker.
Benchmakers, yeah. I think when it comes to work, whether I've been an entry-level employee or president of a company now, I've always tried to be a playmaker. And in my mind, that definition of is assisting, helping, leading, just doing whatever it takes for the brand, the company, and the group that you're with to be successful, regardless of your role.
Makes sense. I love it. Julie, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think in a personal aspect, I played a lot of sports in high school. And I would say the best playmaker part for me is actually passing down those skills that I had to my sons. So one played football in high school and also ran track and was very, very successful. So I'd like to say that that's my best playmaker from that aspect. And then I would say a professional, kind of a little bit along Rash's lines, but I would say more into the values aspect of really trying to instill the values, good values that we have as the four partners when we first founded our company, right? And I think really trying hard to make sure that we still are grounded in those and really exhibit them every day.
Yeah, I think that I love that, by the way, because I don't know how a company is a playmaker for the ecosystem if they don't have that philosophy. So I love that. So
absolutely.
Yeah, let's jump in a little bit on a history lesson for our audience here today. So entrepreneurs started up an agency. What was the world like then? Your competitive set? What made you think you had an opportunity to create a successful business in sports marketing?
It's interesting. Our business originally was founded as Halo Sports by David Brenner, who was head of marketing for the Bulls, and Julie and I joined a few years later. And he joined a large publicly traded company, much like Playfly, to create a sports marketing division. And the onus was at that time, a lot of partners were buying sponsorships from the Bulls only for season tickets and a sign in the arena. And he sold those partnerships and felt, if I can represent these companies that I'm selling to, I can help them activate and do a lot more with the assets that they're buying versus just looking at as a partnership, as a vehicle to get season tickets to do entertainment and hospitality. That was the genesis of the agency, was brands can do better. Let's start working with those brands and so show them how they can leverage team partnerships.
And I think I'll add to that a little bit is he was honed in a little bit on the NBA, right? They had so many rules and regulations around what he could and couldn't do and execute with the Bulls. I think by stepping out of that, he was able to have better ideas and more unique ideas that he could execute on behalf of the brands outside of the team orientation.
So maybe let me dive a layer deeper on that perspective, because obviously brand consulting maybe today is needed even a higher rate than it was way back when. What years was that? What did the world look like? And then, from your perspective, what was the key to getting a brand to see the vision when sports maybe even at that time wasn't necessarily the majority of their sports marketing, or excuse me, their marketing in general, or their media spends and all those types of things. So maybe expound upon it a little bit.
Yeah, the marketplace at that time, that was the mid 90s. And so, I had been a professional in the sports marketing business since '89, so about 5 or 6 years in. And I think the world was just evolving. There was ProServe and there was IMG, but this idea of having a sports marketing agency was fairly new. Most ad agencies would handle the sports marketing partnerships and weren't necessarily have the skill sets to do so. And I think on the national landscape, international landscape, things were just evolving, right? Cable TV was coming around. There wasn't social and digital. Brands were figuring out that like football in the Southeast actually makes sense, and there's a huge component there. The NBA was growing because Michael Jordan was on his run of championships off the Larry Bird, Magic Johnson years. The NFL was growing, so it was really a time for people to be entrepreneurial, and go to brands and convince clients that you've got a media buying expertise, you've got a company to create ads for you, you've got a company to do activation for you, but do you have a company literally leveraging your sports partnerships beyond just buying commercials and inventories or a sign? And how do you activate and execute and really take advantage of that? And we were able to walk into companies and convince them that our services were in addition to what they had, not duplicative, and we were experts in the field that could get them more value. And one of the lines we gave to them was, if we activate, execute, and negotiate your deals, you'll pay for our fees and save money than what you're doing on your own. And that was a pitch we gave, and we proved over time and time again.
And I think from back then too, there was a lot of ticketing, right? They just did the tickets just to be able to take their clients to say they can go. I think when we came in and had this different value proposition of taking some of those assets and either repurposing them in a new and a unique and a different way, or really being much more strategic with their ticket allocation in and of itself, was like, I would think, more groundbreaking at the time than it is now.
Yeah, yeah, and I think all of those things are true. And again, what I loved about the statement was, you guys were, again, you didn't come in at the beginning, but you were there towards the beginning. But that was truly entrepreneurial. That the world didn't speak that way. They didn't think that way, and so love that you guys were on the forefront of it. So let's sort of play out maybe some of the key milestones with the firm and being nearly 30 years old, and like what is it? What do you feel like along the way were these seminal moments for you as you were expanding and your message was resonating and the like? So maybe Julie, this time maybe you go first.
Sure. I think one of the things that we always talk about when we describe the history of our company is the first, right? We had a lot of firsts in the industry that we're really proud of, and we continue to try and do that as well. But back then, like MLB signage, right? There was no background dugout signage. And so we were the ones who ended up negotiating that and being able to have that. Now it's everywhere, right? It's a standard asset that comes along with any package, I think, that you can buy. I think also is some of the signage on the infield of the NASCAR race, right? In the infield, they never put that there. And during a negotiation with Tony and I believe David, they really said, hey, this is a value that we want. And they laughed and they were like, we're not laughing. Like, we really want this piece. So we were the first ones to have that infield signage, which is now, again, a standard. I think Rash specifically, you can probably talk about some of the caddy program and some of the other programs too.
Yeah, I mean, another kind of first for us was we had Nature Valley as a client, and we were looking for retail kind of branding space to build that brand with the PGA Tour, and we ended up negotiating a deal to have all caddies wear Nature Valley branded hats. And the signage value we got was tremendous. I think a couple other firsts for us were with Gatorade and some other clients. We started delving into the world of youth sports and activating to reach young athletes and their families. And so at that time, and still today, it's an unwired network. So we literally put the teams and the leagues and the governing bodies together in one major buy, so a client could seamlessly reach 300 events and millions of kids and athletes, and that hadn't been done. And then I think another first for us was this genre of high school sports, which has become so big today. But we started televising high school basketball in the city of Chicago on PBS on a regular basis. We created a reality series for Fox Sports Net, 65 episodes back in 2002. And then we brought ESPN the idea to put LeBron on when he was in high school, which was unheard of. And so that was also another groundbreaking moment for us, was kind of figuring out these niche businesses and then niche at the time and then becoming much more normal much later on in life, 10, 15 years later.
Makes sense. all those are wonderful moments, and truly what I love about them again is that never been done before philosophy that sounds like you guys had, and maybe the early stages you were truly on a regular basis breaking new ground. Speaking of, Julie, I'll sort of come back to you on this. Female executive in sports also probably wasn't a common thing back then. So maybe if you can, and Rash, I'd love your sort of follow up on it, but how you guys came together as partners and how you looked at, that sort of groundbreaking of maybe through some new glass ceilings for a female executive in sports.
Sure. I think, well, a lot of credit goes to David Brenner and how he wanted to position the agency, right? And so I think the four of us, Tony Schiller, David Brenner, Rashid, and myself, and at the time we actually had another partner, male partner. And so I think we all had very different talents bringing that to the table, but we all had shared values, kind of going back to that same theme. And I feel like I was very blessed in that they really took me at the actual work that I could do, and gave me credit for that and brought me into the fold in that way. And absolutely, like, I am very proud that, I was a partner at a sports marketing agency by the age of 30 and as a female. And I feel like it was unheard of. And I didn't even realize it. I was so young until I really started going to more industry conferences or having more meetings and really looking around and knowing that I'm the only woman in the room. But my partners, and especially Rashid in the last couple of years, has really tried to help elevate that because we think it's really important so that we can try and be a mentor and really set that stage for that.
Yeah, I think to add to that, I think part of it's just the background you grow up in. I grew up in a family of, my parents are both immigrants, but my mom with 5 kids got her PhD and ran an educational foundation with my dad. So I grew up in this world where, men and women are highly educated. Expectations are high for both boys and girls in the family. My first job out of college at Leo Burnett, the media director was a woman. The assistant media director was a woman. All the supervisors were women. And we dealt with sports and media and advertising. So from home life to early career life, I was always surrounded with these amazing women who did unbelievable things and mentored me and taught me. And I think that's been a philosophy of our agency. And beyond that, even over the past number of years, we've done a lot of work just in terms of DEI and minority candidate development. We run a scholarship program for minorities at 4 universities in Illinois, a mentorship program. So when it comes to kind of equality in the workplace and then creating opportunities for not only females, but for minorities, it's been a big ethos of our company for a lot of years.
And our workplace really, really tried to support that as well. I feel like a lot of employees really gravitate to the activities that we're able to do with that, and are really proud that not only do we do just one item with that, we really have a platform. We have a couple of professors that we have utilized now going on the 5th year to really continue that education and those conversations that are so important to be able to continue that diversity in our company, which brings out so much more creativity and more, everything that we can offer.
Totally. I mean, and again, it was an attraction for me and for Playfly to your business, not just what you were doing, but how you were doing it and who was doing it. So love that. And Julie, again, I think you would agree with me. I don't think anybody in the sports ecosystem would say that it's mission accomplished, like we're there as far as gender equity, but we are certainly light years ahead of 2002 or, the early stages of this business in particular. So thank you for all that you've done on that front. And I know you've been a mentor to many through that process as well, which is important. Maybe shifting gears a little bit towards what I was just starting to refer to. So we're obviously deeply connected now, thankfully. You had choices along your way. Again, I probably would have categorized you years ago from knowing you from afar as fiercely independent, but yet here you are now part of the Playfly family. What attracted you to Playfly, and what were the sort of reasons and rationales that you two sat in a room as partners talking like, we're about to do this. What are we doing the right thing, and are we doing it for the right reasons? Rash, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I can go first. Sure. I think the marketplace is constantly changing, and part of the reality for us as an independent agency is we've been fiercely independent. But we also looked at the marketplace and said, hey, we need to get our brand, which is phenomenal, out in front of more people. How do we do that? When we're competing for larger pieces of business, how do we show we've got resources and offices and research and international capabilities? Um, you know, a big part of what we do is media sales, and that landscape is changing, as you well know. So how do we align ourselves with a company that does media sales? And then we also felt, how do we align ourselves with a business where we matter?
Mhm.
Not a business that's so big that we're like the side dish. We're like the broccoli, like you know, you order steak and then everyone doesn't care about the appetizers, right? Or the side dishes. And then also, how do we align ourselves with somebody who's entrepreneurial? We had different individuals wanting to give us dollars, but they couldn't help our business grow. And Julie and I, we're still here for the long term and want to see the business thrive and grow. And so for Playfly, we felt there was a mixture of entrepreneurial spirit, a newer business, so we could have an impact in helping grow that business while we grow our business and merge them together. And then an expertise in media, an expertise in high school. And then you guys also play on three levels. You play in the high school world, the college world, and the pro world. We're not in the college and professional world. We want to be. So we felt all that was important. And I think Julie can talk about this more, but then also a cultural fit.
Mhm.
We had great conversations with you and with Schreiber and with Jeff, and we felt people wise there was an alignment in terms of philosophy and vision, and that provided us with another kind of impetus to move forward.
And I think, Tana, to your point, Craig, we have had several conversations over the past, I don't know, 10, 15 years
Yeah.
and trying to entertain them. But all of these elements had to be there. And a lot of different people that would come to us, they didn't have all of those elements. And we felt once we were connecting with Playfly, we were like, whoa, all these dots are coming together. And we did have several conversations over the time when we were negotiating and saying, okay, do we really feel like this? And we keep coming back to, yeah, this works. This works. And I think we're super excited about being able to scale what we do, and do it with somebody who cares, shares those values, somebody who we have, it's not just one area in Playfly business that we can impact. There's several, right? And so I think, again, to echo what Rash had said about making a difference, I think we can make a difference in a lot of different areas because Playfly has, has been around for 4 years now. We're
Mhm.
bringing 30 years of experience in, and which I think and hope that makes a difference.
Yeah, well, it does. And whether it's the early discussions I was having with Tony, or once we got a little bit more serious about what a potential tie-up could look like, it was clear to me that you guys were still the stake, Rush. So you're still the stake. So
Good to hear.
yes, 100%. And look, again, if you look at it from our perspective, from the outside coming in, you had this reputation as being unbelievable on delivery. You actually came through for your clients. There wasn't just the great strategies or ideation. You actually deliver on some very tough logistical issues, whether it's on the brand side or whether it's on the event side and the media side. And so you're taking very complex scenarios and making it look pretty easy. So it's a nice secret sauce that I do think blends pretty well with the broader Playfly. When I think about cultural fits, look, we always talk about integrity as our lead. But the personal and professional side of that, and again, that delivery component of doing what you say you're going to do, it's almost amazing to me when I think back on some of the things you guys have accomplished and the things that you're currently even doing and fighting against this media change and fighting against some of the new ways that people are looking at this space and all the new investment and all that. It's been fun to watch from the outside, and then now having you part of the family, it's been great. So let me shift into that now that you're in. Very specifically, one of the biggest things you guys have done that's made a very what normally would look complex, but now is seemingly second nature for you, and maybe poised for growth. Chipotle Nationals. So yes, you do multiple sports across the high school landscape, and yes, there's a big football season coming up for all of us here. But when you think about that basketball, an event that didn't exist, that you actually fabricated, created, and now has become essentially a de facto national championship for boys and girls, and especially as we think about where it can go. What was the vision? What was the impetus? And then how did you actually manifest it?
Sure. I think the impetus was actually I was with another basketball executive, and we're at a big high school basketball game, 9,000 people sold out. And we looked and said, the independent schools, the Oak Hills of the world, the St. Benedict's, which was coached by Danny Hurley at the time, their seasons are done at 44-0, and the state teams all go and play. So the impetus was, let's challenge those independent teams to play a postseason tournament. And then ultimately, let's grow it to get more states involved, which we did. And then we also felt like the marketplace over time was going to change, and there'd be more schools developing independent basketball programs outside of their states. So we felt that we can get states involved, which we've got 10 states to say it, yes, and allow their teams to play, and more independents come about. We could end up with a tournament that ends up deciding the number one team in the country, not on paper by USA Today or by ESPN rankings, but actually letting the students play on the court. And I think that's what's happened. The year one, 15 years ago, 4 of the top 25 teams in the country, as ranked by USA Today, were eligible to play. This last year, 17 were. And so as you look at the vision of that tournament, it's come to life. I think for the future, we want to expand the event. I'm tired of getting phone calls from coaches ranked 11th or 12th and getting mad about not getting in. This year on the boys' side, we had a record. The top 10 teams in the nation played in the tournament to end the year, which has never happened before. So I think the growth of it is, if you think about where the NCAA and the NIT tournament were for college, 40, 50 years ago and where they are today, Chipotle Nationals is in its 15th year of development. I think the next 15 to 20 years, you're going to see explosive growth and engagement. And the tournament really go from a tournament of 8 to 10 teams on the boys' side and 4 to 6 on the girls to, 24 to 32 to even 64 teams over the next 10 or 15 years.
That's great. Love it. Love it. Actually, Julie, let me switch gears for you, and then maybe we can wrap up here. Years, decades now of brand experience, but that brand experience and need has changed over the last number of years. If you sort of had to predict forward, Rash just did on the event side, you said for brands, what do you think that they need to be able to make a connection with fans and have a successful plan, especially in a world where sports marketing has grown to this level? How do they stand out, and what's the future hold for them?
Yeah, I think especially with this generation, it has to be authentic. You have to find a way that it's real and it's authentic to be able to connect with them. Otherwise, you get lost in the clutter, and they easily shift away from that. So I think the more that you can really know who you're targeting and being able to execute on that, and most of it's creatively trying to think of another way to get at them, but that can really resonate, but also is authentic. So I think that's really the biggest challenge, and that's every day when we're trying to think of it. What do we do? How do we do it? And it'll continue to evolve in that way, I think.
Yeah, it's a great lens, I think, for anybody on the brand side watching this, is to make sure that your research is matching what you actually should be doing, and not vice versa, just going totally by gut today. There's enough information to tell you where to go and then show up in authentic ways, for sure.
Right. And I think the data and insights piece, right? I mean, that's another item that we have consistently needed to be able to show that ROI. So even though we know that it resonates, how can you prove it to make sure that those dollars can continue to be allocated to doing those type of activities?
Rash, you mentioned your involvement in high school. You've mentioned how Playfly was an attraction for you and Julie as a potential tie-up because of our involvement in high school. Can you give a little bit more insight? Right, the existing business of Playfly was in the high school multimedia rights space, championship events for states across the country, scaled, going to national brands, local brands, and talking to them about the power of youth sports, but through the lens of high school. We've even done, and as I think the audience probably had read, now a groundbreaking deal with one in particular in modern day, and really looking almost like a college program about thinking about how we can bring more monetization so they can keep investing into their student athlete experience. So from your perspective, though, what and how important was it for you in this decision again? But also, what do you think the marriage is going to look like across high school now in youth sports?
Yeah, I mean, as part of our decision to go forward with the acquisition by Playfly, understanding the high school and youth marketplace was critical, because not every brand does, not every VC company does, not every agency does. And so the fact that Playfly had actually put investment in that space down, and we're putting significant dollars and people and resources in the marketplace, was attractive to us because you understand that marketplace. So when we have a conversation about an acquisition, about a new event, we're talking to people who speak the language versus having to educate somebody about that language. Beyond that, if you look at our connectivity, we license rights from a number of Playfly states. Arizona, Nevada, Utah, California. So we'd already been working with your staff. So the other factor that we looked at was you've got these deep relationships with high school state associations and you're running state championships. We work with those state associations to televise their best regular season games during the high school football or basketball or volleyball or softball season. So now if we're creating events, which is what we do, we place them in Playfly states and Playfly markets. Can we access advertisers together? Can we access content together? Can we create better relationships with the local community because we've got a Playfly representative or multiple people in those states and in those markets? And then as we ideate about a property like Chipotle Nationals and taking it to a multi-region tournament, how can we access Playfly High School? So I think all those things connected. Beyond that is, we've got a lot of social media handles we run. We have live streaming capabilities that we run. So now how do we access Playfly rights and Playfly properties and Playfly access points to enhance those things? So we felt there was a case of, on the high school side, 1 + 1 = 3, 4, or 5. And then even on the consulting side, when we looked at our bandwidth versus your bandwidth, combining the ability for us to pitch together, to approach clients together, the research capabilities with Vision Insights, the creative capabilities that you have with Sport and Story, and then our capabilities as well, we felt we're going to be able to go into client pitches 2 to 3 times in strength than what we were doing on our own.
Yeah, if you think about a very cliche now way of talking about it, but the college is becoming like pro, right? They're getting professionalized. High school is certainly starting to look much more like college and what college has been as well, which is a natural occurrence. And I think a great opportunity for Playfly, but also for our partners across our media, our brands, and our property rights.
And frankly, Craig, we've had, you mentioned the Modern Day agreement. I've had multiple schools call me up and say, you're part of Playfly. Tell us about Modern Day and leagues and governing bodies. So we've been on calls with, Brent and your high school team. And now high schools are looking at us, or even leagues are saying, wait, so you've got the event capabilities, the social media capabilities, the live streaming capabilities of Paragon, but you've also got the MMR sales representation, knowledge of the marketplace, and monetization expertise of Playfly. That's a combination that we've not seen in the marketplace before. And so it's just led to even more interest than we've ever had in terms of that business. I think it's going to continue to grow.
Well, look, again, I couldn't be more pleased to have you as part of the Playfly family, and love to have this in a public way out in the market to understand how we have grown, why we've grown, and maybe, again, what we look at as for our growth for the future, whether it's in the high school event space for brands and the like. So Rashid and Julie, thank you so much for joining us on Playfly Playmakers, and look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.